Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to LEGO MARVEL Superheroes. So, there's a couple of levels we haven't even played the story mode through, but otherwise we ran through every other level in free play and got the gold bricks. Which means now I'll collect ghost studs, I have fast dig, fast build, a quest detector, a Stanley Imperil detector, a gold brick detector, a character token detector. We have disguises, which I guess we can leave on. And the most important, we have the studs times 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And attract studs, which means now whenever we pick up one stud, it will give us 3,840 studs instead. So, it's weird, certainly, that the game has this default radar. And then there's a secondary radar in the form of the detectors, but they do help a little. I mean, you can't deny that something pointing in the exact height does make it make more sense in being able to see where something is in relation to all the other buildings and elements in the overworld. So what we'll want to do today is we'll do some quests, spend about 20 minutes in Manhattan, and then we'll do a mission, and then maybe go to a different open world place. I want to turn off disguises though, because I won't be able to do these quests and see who these people are if they have the ridiculous disguises. Red brick. This is an Agent Carter retired.
Charming little cafe nearby.
So she wants me to. We're doing another in the past. Memory lane.
I've heard this cafe owner is selling something called Captain America cappuccino. I don't think it's likely that Steve somehow survived and became a barista, but I have to be sure. Unfortunately, getting inside the cafe won't be quite as simple as one might imagine.
So we have to get in. What we don't have is a fast scan. So unless they opt to include that in the fast fix, there is a real good argument to be made that they shouldn't have included the scanning or the disguises element. They hit it to get it started. Some people will go dance over there instead. Apparently that guy doesn't know what he's doing. Neither does that guy, so I think we probably need Ultimate Ultron, which doesn't make the biggest amount of sense. I guess maybe you were supposed to be playing as Tony Stark to fix it. We can run around and get studs, but it's completely pointless at this point. We're gonna have more than enough.
However, it would appear that Steve isn't in sight after all, as if Captain America would be in need of a hot drink right now. In any case, thank you for... hang on, 10 cents for a cup of coffee? Can you believe it?
The joke there being that as in the current time that this memory is happening, Captain America would be frozen solid in a block of ice and would need a hot drink. So that unlocks Squirrel Girl Classic, kind of with no relation whatsoever, and here you have, it's like you lived the memory and saw through her eyes, but the events sorta happened and sorta didn't, which is different. I don't know if it's particularly special, but it's different. It still definitely feels like these these bad guys are randomly spawned, the crimes, so it kind of still feels like it's not really worth your time to do them. If I'm wrong about that, that means we'll have to run around Manhattan and probably do a ton of crime solutions. Interesting. So you had to break that, then you had to hit this to pull down the power wire that is lit. They're trying to introduce the idea of power wires being a thing. Yeah, and it does inherently point out a issue. I'm very possibly am gonna run into at least one of these. Are these supposed to be wine bottles on the edges, or I have no idea what that's supposed to be. Maybe a laundromat? Or an electrical room. I guess maybe it's supposed to be an electrical room. It's very possible that I end up running into a quest that just sets me up where I don't know what to do. We've already seen it once happen, and so I might be right next to a gold brick or something and just not be able to figure out how to open the door. And there's no indicator that you seemingly can get that would point towards the elements to solve some of these puzzles. Right, back to missions. And we want to avoid races. That was one guy. And down a couple different directions. It's fairly easy to end up going right past a character too. Yes, supposedly, according to this, somebody here. And this way.
I'm sure they're all just hiding. I mean, I don't remember any kind of announcement that the coast was clear, so how are they to know?
Here we have a whole bunch of Lego flags, British flags, German flags, and American flags and Japanese flags, which I guess the idea, probably, if I was to guess, is that this is a this is all the regions that this game would have sold at, and they're basically Lego stickers, so they're not particularly getting used. Although it's, I guess, a little interesting that you would have a Japanese flag and then not have a Korean flag, considering there was a Korean level set in Korea in this game, because that would certainly have been better use of your animation. But I'm sure they already had all of those flags, and they don't have like a South Korean flag already made for Lego games. And of course they would get in trouble if they used some kind of North Korean flag. Nor would that really even help them any, because it's not like video games are allowed to be owned in North Korea. This is still slow. Like, even with the extras, you can still run into fight scenarios like this that manage to slow down the game and and act as a stumbling block or a speed bump to the action. I guess they wanted me to attack him at that point to get some distance. Yeah, it seems like to get this to work, you have to lock them in a specific distance to trigger the attack that they want. Or to at least to trigger a attack. I'm fairly certain to do the last bit of damage you have to do that. There's Ronin the Accuser, which he was a fairly big character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Man, it's slow getting down.
So tired and weak. Oh, my hero! Now out of the way. I need my beans.
More and more, collecting all these things will involve flying around a lot, which I think is what they planned on having happen. Is that they wanted, as a smiley face, that feels like a direct reference to like the Joker. That's also fairly weird because LEGO games really haven't drawn a lot of images with LEGO studs. And this game barely even has any LEGO studs in it most of the time.
I'm so glad everyone got back safe. Thank you so much. And on a side note, totally a byproduct of this whole thing, you understand. My tips should start rolling back in. Here, I think you definitely deserve a cut.
It definitely feels like some new generation Beth the Waitress. I wonder if that's a named character from the cinematic universe. Very possible. But yeah, it feels like a... Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. It's so easy to get distracted. Okay. Can we open this without just Thor? Activating platforms. Do I have any other character that would be electric that I know of? I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't realize there was a thundercloud that would animate. Alright. Let's get this one on top first. That way we So is there only one way this works? Or are there multiple ways this works? For a kids game, I really wouldn't be upset if this did pretty much cheat the whole system. But it has a whole reset circuit too, and that's the only way you can reset things. This is a interesting experiment, but it just leads to frustration because now we know the right solution here is to power the top one. And then power the middle one. And most people certainly wouldn't have figured this out any faster than I have, so lots of Thor powering up. And then your third power up. Best case scenario, you would have had to power up 3 different times in a row. Yeah, there's really no reason for these containers to exist. They really should just open up and then immediately explode into studs. Which that did remind me as to what I was gonna say. Yeah, it feels like there was a new team that worked on this game, because every previous LEGO game has been really good about. I'm gonna try to stay uptown here. They've been really good about just flooding every single part of an overworld with studs, and there's just a ton of square feet where there really aren't any, or it's just a straight line. Something that would have been really simple to do, that frankly even an intern should have been able to do better. Cloud 9.
Some cloud platforms, the civilians could jump over here and climb down, but for some crazy reason they're too scared. I've been trying the whole pep talk approach for hours. I think it's time someone a little more persuasive stepped in.
Right. So she's created these cloud platforms, and we've got to convince them to jump down the cloud platforms.
From what I've heard, even your worst fears can be overcome if someone mind controls you. Sounds like just what we need.
Okay.
No way, man. I ain't stepping on no stupid cloud.
So then we just...
Superhero might be able to survive that drop, but I don't think a civilian would come out so well.
Mind control this guy.
I can't wait to step on those clouds. They look so safe and fun.
Well, this is pretty awful. Like, this is a bad camera angle with potential wrong pass from the looks of it, timing, and just absolutely not what you would expect from a kid's game. Alright. And then it's just easier. And Scarlet Witch flies, but she kind of only hovers. But it is just easier to just fly to the next person.
I can't do it. I'm scared of heights.
This is way more of a challenge than most of the other things.
All right, let's do this thing. Hey, have cars always been that small?
These are fairly large platforms, but there's still plenty of room for failure.
Okay, that's 2. Didn't I tell you? Clouds are like the new floor.
And the good news, I suppose, is that we probably won't end up ever doing this again. But even having to do this 3 times.
This is a report of lawless thugs. There's a reason they don't build houses out of clouds. Those things aren't so solid.
I could see what they were thinking.
Up and down on these clouds. I can't see a single downside to this.
You kind of have to jump because you won't have time otherwise. And the cloud will fall out from under you. Yeah, the camera angle is supposed to be automated here. I'm not really using the right stick, and even with it I'm struggling because it's going full 360 crossing the invisible fourth wall, which they tell you never to do in photography and videography, for good reason.
Great going. You really helped me out there. And seriously, if you could spread the word about how nice and reliable cloud platforms are, I'd appreciate it.
It would be nice, frankly, if they
Then the
just
next time this
teleported you.
happens, people will just bounce their way across on their own, and we can all go home a lot quicker.
Yeah, they really should just teleport you to the final location and not make you go and talk to these people a second time. Look at where the camera is now. Dude. It's just way in the wrong place. And they all disappeared, so I don't have to deal with them. Thank goodness. And let's go ahead and get these vehicles and these races done. These races have all been super easy using Quicksilver, which that's exactly what happened in LEGO Marvel Superheroes. Also, is that once I found the character that could just run fast enough, that was the one character I used for all the races, because driving the vehicles were not fun and not well designed. And this LEGO game, I've barely used any of the vehicles, but I can still pretty much confirm that it's the same old system. Trying to accelerate with the left trigger, crashing into a lot of things, hitting a lot of places where you will just accidentally get stuck. Okay. If we can get everything like past this section up on this section done, I think that would be good progress. And that we've gotten everything on the other half of the map. That's what I assume would be the south side, although actually I think we probably are on the south side of Manhattan right now, and we got the north side done. Right. Yeah, here's a great example of something that looks like I can just break it with gold, but there's something else, so we'll see if perhaps I need to blow it up with explosives first. Nope. Nope. So let's just then revert to standard LEGO responses to any problems, which is running around blowing things up until we can find maybe something to build or something to give us an indication. Yeah, I've not seen anything like this before. Alright, but I have seen that before, so must have to dig into some area or dig something up. We do have fast dig, which that sped that process up, but fast fixing would be way more useful. And then fast scanning should exist, and it doesn't exist, and several other things should exist to skip all the little mini game things. I guess I could go and look at the menu and see if there's something we could click. This is a fairly modern LEGO game, so the idea of having like a game setting they would say skip the mini games and it not being a red brick. I don't think that would happen. I think at a certain point that probably should happen. Of course, inherently LEGO games are getting bigger and bigger, and the parts of LEGO games that are worth playing are getting fewer and fewer. And so there really needs to be a way that gets addressed, and that they leave a lot of. We need the character to, the developers to leave a lot of the useless, repetitive stuff on the cutting room floor in favor of not just new stuff but also better stuff. Apparently we have to blow up this silver thing first, and then that'll give us a switch with fast build. There's no fast switching though. Not that switching happens enough to really justify that, but just fast actions in general should be a red brick. Right. I'm trying really hard to fly, and it's not making it easy on me. We'll just crash down here.
Don't worry, this is gameplay related.
And then I need another explosion. We're gonna end up going longer than I thought it was gonna take us, but there's no good reason not to do all this. This is interesting that is broken through Wanda's ability, because we haven't seen that before. But then whenever you get down these little sewer holes, you get stuck there. It kind of feels like at some point they were gonna introduce some sewer system to Manhattan, which would have been a major improvement to the open world. Or those could have been the yeah, had each one of those little sewers been shortcuts to other open world areas, that would have been interesting.
I'll have that conniving crook dead to rights. Shall we?
She-Hulk is a lawyer. And she doesn't seem to ever Hulk out and lose her mental capabilities as some versions of Hulk seem to. She-Hulk probably doesn't get her due, but she also probably doesn't get used correctly or enough. For as many times as there were Hulk's appearances in the movie, in the cinematic movies, there could have been a She-Hulk in half of those instances. I believe She-Hulk got some kind of blood transfusion, and she's from Bruce Banner, and thus became the Hulk. I kind of get the feeling that the actor who plays the Hulk in the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't even really want to be there half the time, so it would have been easy to introduce her as a character. But pretty much by the point where you could have introduced She-Hulk, I think the Marvel movies were so overwritten and so overburdened with with so many characters and so many plot lines and so many story threads and so much dialogue that introducing another character in the Avengers movies kind of couldn't happen. So then you would have to have a standalone She-Hulk movie or Hulk movie, or at least maybe a Black Widow Hulk crossover movie.
Hope you don't mind us stopping by unannounced.
And you definitely do have movies like that, and when you hit the animated direct to DVD or direct to Netflix Marvel and DC videos, you'll also have like the Justice League versus several other people, and in those cases I guess they can risk it a little bit more and bother to introduce more characters. She-Hulk may have been a fairly useful character had I not already gotten Ultimate Ultron, but I imagine she's not that useful now, because while she probably doesn't take up as much space as the regular Hulk, she probably still only does what Hulk does. And so that's a teleportation point, which means we can come over here, and then we need our Hawkeye character to shoot to the glass. He bounced an arrow on the mirrors of those glasses and it didn't do anything. Yeah, there's a problem with introducing the idea that he can shoot glass breaking arrows and then having all of Manhattan as your playground, which Manhattan is probably best described as an island of steel and glass. I can't break this, so I need to figure out what triggers that. We have like this walking bridge, and it seems to me we're supposed to drop. Alright, well this is gonna be difficult. We gotta pretty much land and then jump, and then we're gonna have to fly. Maybe Spider-Man might be the best character for this. The DLC character of Spider-Man. This one. This one. And then swinging. Nope. That's no good either. I see what I'm supposed to do. It's over here. It's a challenge for Quicksilver, and apparently you could have accomplished that challenge with Quicksilver. It's kind of funny that his images his after images stay around and stand on the switches. That's an interesting comment, certainly, and it does kind of highlight the problem of every time they try to introduce a new character from the Marvel Universe into the already existing cinematic universe. Here we've got a race to do. Even here, Quicksilver feels slow. And he doesn't feel like he's moving at such a rapid pace that you can't control it. I'm very easily just pressing forward on the left stick with my thumb and just leaning into the general direction I want to go. And yeah, I'm not running into any problems other than the occasional having to maneuver myself away from a car in the way. But once again, if I was driving a car during this whole section, that would be very annoying. I'm also missing all the jumps that they hard programmed in. Oops. I don't know which way to go. That would have stunk. I feel like this game and Marvel and like Marvel superheroes, LEGO Marvel superheroes in particular, benefit really well if they were the only LEGO game you bought for a kid. I don't know in modern time how much you can get away with that, frankly, but if you're only going to get one LEGO Marvel game, flying around all of Manhattan does offer a significant value add. Alright. We're at 680 million. And I'm just gonna get these two over here, and then I'm gonna call it a day for can this guy work this? No, yeah, I didn't think he could.
Access granted.
Meanwhile, while that's happening, well, actually, the whole game just pauses, doesn't it? Well, that just opened the toilet.
Access granted.
Yeah, this is as good of a point, I think, as any to... What color is that? Well, we'll see if it's Hawkeye. Yeah. So, seems like there's a gold brick that direction, and then everything else starts kind of in that direction. And as if we were to fly around a lot more, where is this gold brick? It's like under the ground? See, this is particularly weird because you have an arrow pointing, but the arrow is effectively pointing at nothing. You can see that there's definitely a problem with a lot of these indicators, is that they can potentially just point the wrong direction, or they can point in a place that is off screen because you have to do something to activate it. But I have no idea what the thing you would need to do would be to activate it. And it seems like they didn't really do anything here to take advantage of the Brooklyn Bridge. They could have at the very least had a race that took you from one end of the Brooklyn Bridge to the other end.
Hold up. Criminal activity detected nearby. I guess dinner can wait.
Yeah. Yeah, there must be something that you break that opens something. Yeah, you just do your standard Lego thing of running around in circles shooting at things. But there's nothing under the water. There's nothing under the bridge. And yet, according to the map, there's something right under the ground. That's annoying. But ignoring that one, it does seem like the rest of the map is mostly pointed to the right of where I am, which slowly reduces the amount of things that need to be done, keeping it all either near the financial district or near Central Park, and we can potentially spend a lot of time running around in circles around this area. Central Park also is a fairly empty section itself, so it's kind of a circle around Central Park. Let's go ahead and do this one race. Once we get all these races done, it'll be a different experience also, because then we can lock in our focus and not have to worry about other moving around because of a race. Although the quests also become sort of like that. The distance between these rings seems to be slightly inconsistent, and frankly, in a lot of these tight curves, it would be beneficial to have them twice as close to each other. Okay. But yeah, ignoring the silver crimes, going this way, we could kind of easily fly around here and get this east side or west side, whatever. They're calling it Yorkville. We could get that, and then at about this point there kind of isn't anything else to do. And then over here we've got a little bit in this East Harlem area, and there's a little bit more over in that side to do, but it's fairly empty. And then over on this side there's basically nothing, so we've cleaned out that area fairly well. Yeah, this whole west side section is almost completely empty for a big section of it, and then you start getting back up into the financial district, or Columbus Circle. I'm pretty sure there was a giant tall building like this in LEGO City Undercover. And then, but there's not even that much in the financial Times Square section. Alright, so we are in good position. Let's go to space. To space we go. And let's play a story level of one of the missions we haven't played. Particularly, I believe Lost in Aether is the one to play, and that's probably why it kept jumping to Lost in Aether, trying to indicate to me that's the level you should be playing. So I guess if I just hit A every time, it might have worked fairly well.
One of his stories was about an ancient race called the Dark Elves, led by Malekith, who attempted to use something called the Ether to bring darkness to the Nine Realms. It sounded kind of serious, but Thor assured us it was all settled thousands of years ago. Why do I still have a bad feeling about this?
This is basically a story of Thor 2, and I would say I think Thor 2 is probably the worst Thor, but I would say Thor 1 and Thor 2 and Thor Ragnarok, pretty much all the Thor movies, feel good in retrospect more than they actually feel good in the event of watching the movie, which that might not be a bad way to make a movie, because you're only going to spend about 2 hours watching a movie. You're going to spend the rest of your life potentially remembering it. But I don't think any of the Thor's girlfriend from the wrong side of the Bifrost somehow managed to stumble upon it. They really never did anything with Jane as much as I think they should have. That it's a Asgard was in more peril than it had ever faced. This is Loki pretending to be Odin at this moment. Like Loki killed Odin or replaced Odin. I think he killed him, then replaced him.
Turn to yourselves, no further harm will come to you. You have my word.
So
Very well, you do not have my word.
It's as if they resent being in prison.
There's no pleasing some creatures.
So we can play as Volstagg or Thor from Age of Ultron, or Fandral, which Fandral looks like he's from the Lord of the Rings series. And so you've got these indicators right now pointing you to things, but it doesn't really matter. Then you might as well just turn it off, because you won't be able to get everything outside of free play.
Be thankful, my dear friend, for he is doing nothing but merely knitting.
You want me to put the hammer down?
So, yeah, I'm not sure if we're just supposed to be fighting people or what. Once again, we've run into another LEGO story level in this game that doesn't indicate things. It would be, we've seen in previous games where they've just put numbers on the front, on the top center of the screen to tell you you're supposed to defeat 20 enemies. They started to get fairly crazy with that, where they would put the faces of 20 enemies and you'd have to cross them all out. Yeah. But numbers would be fine, just to give me an idea. Yeah, LEGO levels shouldn't play out like this. They shouldn't just be wander around and be constantly attacked by randomly, infinitely spawning enemies. But yeah, that's exactly what it was. Is you will just be infinitely attacked until you break the one thing that was important, to build the thing with Lego so that we can then bring up a piece of electronics to charge this device, which I guess will open the door.
Splendid work, my friend. Never thought I'd have to break myself out of the dungeon.
Oh, one swing of my trusty axe would have us out of here in no time.
I'd also say Thor's friends are not given enough screen time by any means. They're not built up enough as important characters in the Thor universe, or the cinematic universe in particular. Of course, I suppose it is worth mentioning that in what I think most people will describe as a move of sheer incompetence, Marvel allowed a creator, whoever was in charge of Thor, to deem Thor, this guy, Odin's son, is his, I guess, real name. But Thor is his real name too. It's Thor, Odin's son, as far as I understand it. Marvel allowed them to deem Thor, Odin's son, unworthy and replace Thor, the hero, with a female character that kind of just looked like a female Thor and was taking his title as Thor, not going by female Thor, just by going by Thor. So Odin's son couldn't hold the hammer or lift the hammer anymore because he was unworthy. Mjolnir, the hammer. And they let that happen for a significant number of issues in the comics, and they allowed a significant amount of controversy to brew and be debated. And then once they stopped getting, I guess, whatever attention they thought they were getting, even though it was over 50% negative attention, I'm fairly certain, it definitely felt like that to me as an outsider who was kind of barely paying attention. Like this very much felt like a case of a creator hating the audience that he needed to create his content to and pander to, and just trying to bait them into arguments. And they let that happen, and then they reverted it, and then they forgot about it, and it never happened. And I guess inherently, this is Sif. I guess you can make an argument that comic books have always kind of done some really dumb things with their characters, and it does often boil down to either you do something that is risky, or you do nothing at all, and then you end up with just the same old, and somehow comic books seem to be particularly in-depth, well at doing both. They'll do controversial things and get the same old, to the point where comic books, mainstream comic books, Marvel and DC, are probably more established as trying to create controversies and create nerd fights as their standard operating procedure, instead of trying to tell good stories. There's this all would have been somewhat around the time with the female Ghostbusters controversy, that the female Thor would have happened, and I imagine the comic book creators intentionally were trying to play into that controversy, which is just a dumb move. But you can pretty easily see some flaws in the idea of Thor having his powers stripped away, whereas Thor, Earth's mightiest hero and a very noble character, could easily have simply stepped down from the position of Thor and let a new character be Thor for a while. You could have had them do the whole buddy cop thing for a while, and then Thor just stay happy on Earth with his love. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Am I just supposed to ignore all that and just jump in here? I guess I am. But stripping a beloved character and besmirching a beloved character is no way to start a new section of the storyline. Particularly if you're just doing it incredibly abruptly to introduce a new character.
I think I'm going to be sick.
Which
I'm not surprised. After you managed to consume 4 wild boars.
which they really should have just introduced a new character. And there's probably been several attempts at doing side characters from Asgard over the years in Marvel, and I imagine the truth is you can only do a short run with those kinds of stories anyways, unless they just somehow succeed at being incredibly popular. But then you run into the bigger issue with comics, in that there is a blatant amount of employee-employer abuse that's happening as far as copyright, in the sense that Marvel and DC won't let any new character really be created and exist because the way the contracts at least used to work, maybe they've figured out a way to write the laws and write the contracts so they don't work this way. It used to be whoever was the original concept creator of a character deserves some royalties of it. So you would have a lot of Stan Lee characters getting royalties for using people like Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure Stan Lee made Spider-Man. So there is absolutely zero desire, and in fact a kind of nasty begrudging effect there, where Marvel doesn't want to empower any creator to create anything that they would care about because they want to own the copyright on it, and they don't want to they want to be able to fire the writers at any point. And I think over the years they pretty much have fired and driven out all the good writers, leaving only those who aren't anywhere as good. And I feel there's kind of a similarity between mainstream video game journalists and what they often awkwardly and what feels like inaccurately say video game fans want, and comic book writers. I don't think the creators of video games or the reviewers of video games often actually do know what their audience wants, and I think that's probably the same as far as comic books, although it's kind of questionable what the comic book audience even is now. I'm gonna just assume I can't scan this, because is the comic book audience people who buy comics from almost completely extinct comic book shops, or is the comic book audience just people that go and watch Disney movies based off comic characters? Right. Wow. That took forever to load.
Too late. My lump of a son Thor added Malekith's escape to his considerable list of heroic failures. His only option was to seek the help of his brilliant brother, cruelly locked away and forgotten in Asgard's dungeons. Defying my orders, They fled Asgard through secret ways long forgotten. And together as brothers, they stood to face our greatest foe.
And so that just jumps us to the next part of this level. I thought that was just going to be the end of the level, which that would have been pretty abrupt, but I wouldn't be surprised, frankly. Yeah, it is kind of a sad statement that video game story writing is getting to the same level as comic book writing, because comic book writing should be better, because that's all they've got. Video games can be interactive, they can have pretty bad story. Comics, not so much. So we're gonna hammer and chisel. Loki apparently has psychic powers. Alright, well, we just need to finish the level, whatever it takes to finish the level. Once again, I don't know what we really are supposed to be doing here. I think we've got ice cubes. And this guy. Can we fly? No. So I can get over here, get near this character, but that does nothing. It really is a shame that the state of the comic books. I'd be totally happy with kids playing a LEGO Marvel or a LEGO DC game, but or you know, doing LEGO Marvel and DC actual LEGO sets. But I really wouldn't encourage them to read comic books. That's knowing full well that you should probably always encourage kids to read, because there's very few of them that will actively read as much as they probably should. But there's just kind of not a lot to offer for young kids to get into comic books. You can give them a free comic book day issue, certainly, and you can give them special issues that well, back in my day they would give out special issues that talked about like dental hygiene, and imagine there's some other PSA style free comic book issues that don't connect to the overall the real comic books with their storylines. But you can't really get them a Spider-Man Miles Morales annual subscription where they get a comic like once a month. First of all, the comic books are far too short. They're about 17 pages, or they feel that short. They might be up to maybe 30 pages, and each page is probably only got at most 6 lines, 6 sentences to read. It's just a really terrible way to try to enjoy a story. If you are going to get a kid into comic books, I'm tapping B slowly just to kind of show that slowly is all that needs to happen. If you were going to get kids into comic books, you need to get like back orders of the trade paperbacks, which combines usually about 6 months worth of stories, and sometimes, depending if you get a omnibus, you might get 3 separate titles of a comic book series merged, because there's some event that's happening between 3 different titles. And that inherently was another problem with comics when I tried to read them, is that you would read a Batman issue and it would say, well, you need to read the Batman and Robin issue that happened this month to know about that, and know the full story. And then you'd go and read the Batman and Robin issue and it says, oh, actually you need to read the Batgirl issue from this month too. So the only real way you get the whole story, and they've done it completely intentionally this way, the only real way you get the whole story is if you get a back order of an omnibus that would tell you almost all the story. Omnibuses sometimes edit out a little bit, but they for the most part tend to keep everything similar. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I see the scan, but I don't have anything to scan that I can scan with. And I can fly over here, fine, sure, but I don't have any ability to melt a gold thing. So maybe I'm supposed to hit this? I mean, I see electricity, but I don't see a prompt. Nope, I was supposed to use Loki's ability. It desperately needs an indicator to tell you that that's what's supposed to happen. That you're supposed to use the shovel with Loki's telepathic abilities. And it's not even keeping it on screen. Yeah, the only thing I could even slightly suggest is getting your kid a membership to Comixology, and I bet if you looked at the price of that, even that is not really worth it, because I bet it is way closer to $12 a month than it should be. Where I think $12 a year for a Comixology unlimited account is about right. And of course you could go into a bigger argument about a lot of the original comic books should have fallen out of copyright and be public domain at this point, particularly in the realm of comic books, since they were never supposed to be very long-lasting content anyways. Like, one issue of a comic gets printed once and then it gets reprinted in a trade paperback about 6 months later. Maybe you get an omnibus a year later, and then that's pretty much it. There's been no effort to print any other reprints, really.
A cold man, yes, but a giant in his way. Gave his very life for Goldilocks, the hammer lover. By more luck than design, my lesser son and his girlfriend managed to return to Earth and regroup with the rabble they call friends.
He's not wearing pants.
They hatched a plan that held the very future of the universe in its balance.
Remember, this is Loki faking his death and replacing Odin.
Sensors are detecting abnormal energy around your location. Are you triggering that?
I'm not even mentioning the black hole grenades they keep using. This is a fairly long level.
That just means we have to keep Malekith busy for 8.
So now we're playing as a human, and I guess this was a scene. I didn't watch all of this movie. Eric Selvig and Jane Foster. So it's a scene where the humans were gonna show their grit and fight back and keep people busy. So it's like a fairly long scene in the Thor movie without Thor or anything that you would expect from Thor from what's been established. Yeah, it is a really sad statement on the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe just cannot do romance, because Jane Foster should have been this should have been a major focus, and it really isn't. Like, they pretend like they have romances in Marvel movies, but then they are not willing to give them the time of day. Yeah. But to get back to my copyright rant, yeah. If comic books had, say, 30 years of copyright from the initial print for a specific elements in each of the comic book, and this is going to get slightly complicated. So Action Man 1 introduces Superman, for instance. Well, everything that should, if the copyright was 30 years old, in my mind, in my proposed way that you would do copyright, is after 30 years, the concept of Superman and how he was depicted in issue 1 should be public domain, and at that point Marvel should have to compete against anyone else who wants to use Superman as a character. Now, let's say in issue 100 they introduced the of Action Comics. Let's say that 10 years later, issue 100 happened, just to pick a number. That wouldn't be right. It would be closer to 4.5 years. But let's say it took them 10 years to make an issue 100 and introduce the son of Superman. And they give him a name and they give him specific traits. Well, then you would have 30 years at that point where where Marvel would have this monopoly, this copyright to the son of Superman. But in the meantime, everybody else can make their own Superman stories. Ideally, that was what copyright was supposed to be. However, Disney, the lobbying in particular, the creators of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is something that no artist that was employed by Disney actually ever created or had any hand into at all, so that they're effectively a non-acting holding company until they made the first Marvel movie. So yeah, Disney has lobbied it to, I think, nearly 100 years. It might be as low as 70 years after the death of the creator, which was never what copyright was supposed to be. Copyright was supposed to stop people from writing novels, like 500-page novels, big long things, and then having someone just completely sell and rip off that content for and have the actual artists, the actual authors, starve to death because somebody basically used a photocopy machine and put no effort into it. And so at that level and at that understanding of copyright, it makes sense, but expanding it has completely broken the balance of which that concept was first introduced. It was supposed to be what benefits society the most. It didn't benefit society to have no copyright whatsoever and allow authors and creative people, smart people, to starve to death because somebody could use a photocopy or at the time a printing press to just duplicate their books and take all the profit of something they did not put any effort into. Now the laws have been so manipulated by political lobbying that that's exactly what happens, is people who put no effort into the actual creation of anything artistic have managed to hire people who are creative as contractors and take their work from them, paying them a unethically low amount of money with often zero royalties, which that's why Europe also has this idea of moral rights, where it's just so unethical to say, hey, you're going to work for me as a contractor and I'm going to pay you $1,000 to make this book, and then the book turns out to be the next Action Comics 1, and they manage to sell it for billions upon billions of dollars, at that point moral rights kick in and they say, no, you deserve more royalties and you deserve more pay. But the general idea of copyright was always supposed to be a balance between what is best for society, and at a certain point it is best for society and better for society. This is inherently part of the core concept of the copyright, the part that the likes of Disney don't want you to know about it, but inherently it is assumed at some point things should leave copyright and become public domain. People should be able to write stories based on Sherlock Holmes or Superman, because at a certain point those concepts are not benefiting the original creator because the original creator is dead, or more often than not making any money off of the products anyways. I'm confused again what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay, I'm trying to
I guess I was supposed to scan. So you could almost make an argument that it could be diminishing royalties or diminishing rights for the up until the death of the author, but at a certain point the idea that a corporation is a person then expands to make it an effectively immortal person, which is completely unfair. To say, well, corporations are these immortal people that can never really die, they can go bankrupt and potentially eliminate any debts from bad decisions, and nobody will be held liable, but they will always live and they will always enjoy the benefit of a copyright, at least until it runs out 70 years after the death of the original creator, who very well may have only been paid $1,000 to create it. And you certainly see the downside of this system that has been created in the fact that there is a lot of managers, a lot of people who seem incompetent, seem overpaid, and there's a lot of people that kind of don't care either, because why are you going to work harder or do a better job or give your A game to a corporation that's just going to pay you effectively minimum wage? There is studies that have definitely proven that at a certain point you stop getting an increase in quality once you've met all the needs of a person, so you can't just get better writing from a writer if you've already paid them more than enough to meet all of their needs and desires and wants, but you can definitely guarantee you will get worse writing if you underpay them. I imagine most of depending on how the contracts are written, I imagine most of the Marvel writers are underpaid severely. Probably goes to stay that this is a fairly boring level. It's once again running into the problem of them needing to make a level that just repeats the scenes from the movie, and particularly the action scenes from Thor 2, which those are better in the movie. Obviously they're gonna be better, so I would have preferred to have to do something completely different and do a completely different story. It's just really easy to turn my brain off and stop focusing when I know that the outcome is going to be the same as the movie. So yeah, theoretically I would be an advocate for 30 years period, although frankly a specific number is the wrong answer. It needs to be rethought for every kind of category, and there needs to be kind of a categorization of things, because like 30 years over the course of video games is different than 30 years over the course of books, is different over the 30 years over the course of movies or music. There's probably an argument of abandonware that also needs to be really addressed as to what is really abandoning something, and at what point do you no longer deserve to maintain a claim of copyright on something if you haven't done anything with it. Comics have these versions of art they call ash cans, that where they copyright the cover art and then they burn it because they had no intention of ever using it, and so they would just burn it in what was an ash can, like a trash can, but for fire and burning.
So despite everything,
You don't even see a final blow. That's disappointing.
Sacrifice of his brilliant brother. What a shameful waste. If only Loki had lived to rule Asgard, what a king he would have made. Glorious and
burdened with glorious purpose.
You never really get to see Odin used as a fighting character, unfortunately, in the movies, where Odin should have been. He should have gotten at least one really good fight, and of course they couldn't really do it because it was an old man playing the character in the movie, so they would have had to do a ton of CGI. Yeah. Most recently, there's been like a reselling of Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy 1 for the Nintendo Switch. And arguably, the only reason they did it is to claim that they are still selling that game and fight in the minds of people the idea that they've kind of abandoned those games, when frankly, in reality, they kind of did abandon Mario 64 after the Nintendo 64 and didn't do anything with it as far as trying to make remasters, which weren't very prevalent back then, but now are incredibly prevalent. And if in the video game category you had, say, 10 years to resell your game, otherwise it's considered abandoned and the copyright's considered abandoned, and at which point fans could have made fan games of Mario 64, which they were doing anyways, and then they got copyright claimed and shut down by Nintendo. Many did. Better games than the re-release that Nintendo put out were made. It really is just a prime example of a company trying to get as much money while doing the least amount of work. And who knows how many of the people that actually worked on Mario 64 even work at Nintendo anymore. So that is certainly another question to ponder. And I'm not saying this wouldn't be a scenario where Nintendo would have in any way been stopped from selling the Mario 64 remake, or it's not a remake, it's an emulated re-release of the old game, but they would have had to do it in a world where competition existed instead of having a monopoly on something that you can definitely make an argument the corporation doesn't deserve to own. The entity that is the corporation doesn't deserve to own. The actual creators of the game, the people that programmed and did the animating and the sound effects, are the people that did the work, and they should potentially be rewarded, if anybody should be rewarded. But if that can't be done with the current legal system, then it should just belong to all of society, all the people who grew up with that and had that as part of their childhood. But if you go 70 years past the death of the creator, then you're talking even things like E.T. for the Atari still are copyrighted. Alright, so we're looking for the collector here to get the red brick. That would... Oops, killed him. I haven't read the walkthrough as far as, so I'm just gonna try and do this legitimately without looking up the answer. Okay. Takes forever, so he wants a coffee mug. Which I knew there were going to be coffee mugs eventually, so that was weird when we had the vial. Right. Taking the biscuits? That's not a British saying I've ever heard. I think they wanted to mean taking a piss, which wouldn't be probably kid appropriate, so it does make sense why they wouldn't have said that. Well, we've got a Thanos glove. Let's see if maybe there's fire somewhere that needs to be put out to find the cup. Most of these collectibles have been right next to the guy. Like, or at least extremely close to the guy. So I bet it is right here, and we just need somebody to open that. Yep.
Not the finest china that I was expecting, but nevertheless, this should do nicely.
It's worth mentioning there's none of the cheat indicators. Like, none of them are helping right now at all. I'm in free play mode. This is the first time we've been in free play mode. All of the indicators are on, and none of them are pointing towards anything at all. There should be something pointing towards character tokens. The gold brick detector should be pointing to probably mini kits, the mini kit detector we just got. So yeah, that's not how I would have hoped for the extras to end up working out. I want more help in the story levels, because it would be fairly easy to end up in a story level in free play and still not figure out how to get all the mini kits or some other collectible. Let's go ahead and hit skip, because there's no reason for that. So I think at that point that means we didn't see any Stanley in perils either. So doing the free play levels are going to be difficult. Alright. There's one more red brick that I could get. And I want to see if I can do an open world area, which we haven't been to Asgard at all. We've been to Manhattan many times. We've done the Shield base. We've done Malibu. So let's go to Barton's farm. I think Barton's farm will work fairly well. And you just fall from the sky. It's weird that there are two silver indicators. And you can definitely tell that the silver indicators are newer art than the standard yellow and white arrows. Okay. How would we power this? We would need something to jump on that, but how would we even have a vehicle? Why is there a T-Rex over here?
Don't worry, Devil. I won't let them take you away. Shield want to take Devil here away and perform some kind of
Moon Boy.
DNA tests. What's there to test? He's a dinosaur. Anyone can see that. I'm not letting them hurt my friend. You have to help me hide him. I know good place, but you have to make sure no one hurt Devil on way, okay? Let's go.
These are some far-reaching choices.
Come on, Devil. This way. Who are you guys? Shield? No, you're not. Come on, boy. Follow me.
Is there a real reason to play as Tony Stark? No, but might as well just stick with what we're doing. This is weird, and it definitely feels like they probably just had a 3D model for a dinosaur, Lego 3D dinosaur, and so they wanted to use it. Although, in all fairness, while there are Lego dinosaurs that are occasionally sold and made for sets, they're not super prevalent, and there's never been a legitimate reason for a dinosaur to exist in a Lego game. We've seen some dinosaur skeletons in museums and things like that. Oh wait, no. There was Lego Jurassic Park. I had totally forgotten about that. There's, yeah, 2 whole Lego Jurassic Park games that... Man, I can't even remember if they were good or not because it's been so long, and all of those games were just so mired with the micro stuttering issue that was happening on my old computer, and incorrect frame pacing. It was more than micro stuttering. Frankly, it was just lagging.
Although maybe you'd be safer with Shield if those guys are anything to go by. If only there was islands somewhere where you could run free with all dinosaurs. Anyway, thank you for helping us.
I think there is an island or land in Marvel that is full of dinosaurs. The Devil Dinosaur being unlocked as a character, not as a vehicle, which is a little different than what I would have thought they would have done. This is out of the way. Come over here. You can see this interface has grown as we've gotten more suits unlocked. We'll probably want to check that out. That's at the end. Was it really necessary to have a ghost thing and a strength thing? Right, well, moving on. Here we have Squirrel Girl.
I thought it'd be nice to bring my squirrel squadrons, if you will, out into the country. You know, let them run around, sling a few nuts, and get back
I think the running gag is Squirrel Girl is like one of the strongest characters in the Marvel universe.
We're never gonna make the Great Lakes Avengers reunion at this rate. Think you can help me look for him?
Yep, and that's a reference to the many side Avenger groups that exist too, or at least existed at one time. Right, so that's where you go to leave. And you need to get in this building. Which way? There's a little Lego squirrel. I frankly would like to see some of this stuff just completely like break as soon as I touch it. That would be ideal half the time, instead of having to walk up and tap the X button. It seems like the game slows down and pauses in Manhattan when you switch characters, but it doesn't in let's see. Can you do anything? I think I need a character that can dig. Yep, I gotta dig over to this. And I suppose Black Panther is supposed to be somewhat smart, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had repair abilities, but apparently he doesn't. So there probably is somebody with repair abilities and the ability to dig. It kind of does feel like there might be an achievement around the idea of
Do you have time for a little emergency run?
like there might be an achievement for getting a vehicle and doing all of this, running around this entire area. Okay, that felt like that should have done something and it didn't. Here's another squirrel, here's a pig. Lego City Undercover spent a lot of time making you look for pigs and shoot them via cannons.
Gorilla, or this would be really embarrassing.
Gorilla Girl. Yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning there is a whole city of gorillas. So, since this is Hawkeye's farm, I guess the idea is there would just always be targets everywhere. Let's see. Switch to a different character. They definitely felt like at some point they were going to just have you play as Tony Stark. And I don't think that would have worked. He's a little bit too smug of a character, just alone, for him to be the main focus of a game. He barely even works as the main focus of Iron Man movies, and they had to pretty much write around his smug characteristics and give him likable sidekicks way more than any of the other Marvel movies. If anything, I think they probably went the opposite direction too far and failed to give enough sidekicks to a lot of the other main characters. Let's see. Can I scan? Apparently he can't. It does a ding before it shows you. So it goes ding, then it shows you 3 things on 3 more dings, and then it might even do a ding after that, which definitely confuses the issue, because it makes you feel like you missed one hint when you really hadn't. Alright. We need to destroy all the cobwebs. It's a hassle trying to fly. Alright, there's 3 more of those. And we're almost to 2 billion studs, but it no longer really matters how many studs you get. And there's another cobweb over here, hidden. Okay. So you almost have to do a race by running to get a vehicle to then, but you don't get a vehicle handed to you when you win the vehicle token and unlock the vehicle. So I'm a little confused as to how I'm gonna end up with a vehicle. Captain America and his shield switches, which aren't used as much. I think they were used more in the Marvel the Marvel superheroes game. Honestly, even not remembering any of the story of the Marvel LEGO Marvel superheroes, I am fairly confident that it was a better game. Right. Here's where I can summon in a vehicle. Nice. And need Hawkeye to hit all of these. Okay. Meanwhile, Thor. We're running around a lot, so we might activate things that don't have anything to do with anything else. So I guess they probably wanted that to fail, so then you have to I wonder if you have to get everything out of the way first. Back to Thor. Sure, it feels like it should be easier than this. You should just be able to press right and left bump and be in kind of a free play mode like you are in the story modes, where it will cycle through different characters, even if it just cycles through different characters in a very weird way. Right and left shouldn't, at the very least, it shouldn't have you switch characters like that, because that's totally unexpected behavior. And yeah, we'll stick with Black Panther. I kind of feel like this would be the point where you should make it more complicated. Like, if you're going to have incredibly complicated puzzles, now would be the time, because you've got such a small area on the farm that you can't end up wandering too far away. So he's running around solving the puzzle instead of you just solving a puzzle. It's kind of like the opposite of making it complicated. Alright. Nope. Oops. This is one of those switches, which we haven't seen these in a while. We've only seen them like once before. It's another squirrel. Here's another squirrel. And I think we've pretty much gotten all the gold bricks, and so everything else will be centered. Well, I guess we can control some chickens with psychic powers, why not? Just bouncing these all into the area. Let's see. They can't go up the slide, they can't go on the seesaw, they can't go on the spinner.
Another cameo. Gotta add this one to my list at home.
It's pretty sad when you like retroactively to kind of, from what it sounds like, figure out that Stan Lee was pretty much dying in throughout most of the time that he shows up in the cinematic universe. He's extremely old and probably, according to allegations, being abused and used, and I think he probably did like to do the cameos, but it probably wasn't good for his health. He needed to be retired and resting for his final days, final years.
Alright, the band's back together. Now to give these little rascals the rollicking of their lives. You may want to plug your ears for this.
I'm not sure what the word rollicking means. It sounds like she's cursing them out.
Sorry about the colorful language. Only way the kids are gonna learn. Thanks for the help. Take this for the trouble. We acquired it from Fin Fang Foom during our last fight.
So, Squirrel Girl unbeatable. Right. Over here we have a race. And it looks like there might actually be some circles of studs in this race, maybe. It's really weird that the circles of studs don't exist in most of these races, because it's not like that didn't work. it worked perfectly fine, as much as any Lego element works. Maybe they just I feel like probably they got feedback that some people didn't want to do the races in LEGO Marvel Superheroes because they were particularly difficult and annoying. I vaguely recall that being the case for me, that I was getting very frustrated trying to do all the races. But they clearly fixed that problem, because I'm now capable of doing these races on the first try every time. There's no issue, really. They're super easy.
It's a good thing I can turn into a gorilla, or this would be really embarrassing.
Is she missing clothing?
I came down here with the guys from the initiative for a nice swim in the lake, but I guess someone thought it'd be super hilarious to hide my clothes. Lucky for me, I can hide my modesty by, well, turning into a gorilla, obviously. But I'm not sure I'll fit in the car for the ride back to the base in this form, so I could kind of do with getting my clothes back.
So, I guess inherently that would be a problem. When you look at like She-Hulk, she's wearing clothes the whole time, whereas Hulk is basically running around in torn, cut off pants. But Gorilla Girl, I guess in her gorilla form, is naked. I don't think that would fly. Comic books are kind of a favorite target of people who love to hate things. So if, even if you had like a French character that just walked around topless, and like culturally that was acceptable, in I guess France might be the wrong country to mention, say that, but you really couldn't have an exhibitionist or nudist character. There's a big difference there too. Exhibitionism is intentionally trying to titillate people and show off your goods. Nudism is just about being natural and happening to be naked instead of being constricted by clothing. But yeah, you can't do any of that. Of anything. The comic book characters are severely overclothed, and people still complain. Although, in all fairness, sometimes the superhero outfits that characters wear are so, because they're animated, they have this ability to be so incredibly tight and form-fitting, more than ever naturally would happen, that you can depict, well, you can fairly easily depict someone as being fully clothed and still show off, make them feel and look as if they weren't wearing anything at all.
All those cool puzzles and stuff, I mean.
Let's see. Let's see how this goes. Hit that. Is that all I had to do? Okay. I thought it was going to make me jump back through all of that, but it didn't. Is there an underground secret area under his farm? I don't think so. It's probably... They kind of made it out like there were going to be more Hydra secret bases, but apparently there really is only one. They are doing something interesting, having more Lego plants And you can kind of see how this is a modern engine LEGO game, because an older LEGO game wouldn't allow you to have a big wall of LEGO plants like that. Did I get all the articles of clothing? I got a shirt, pants, and the hip piece, I guess. Yep. There's a kind of direct situation there where you get kids into comic book and action things, and then they go on the playground and they start reacting and play fighting. And then of course the older teachers are going to probably have a little bit of what they call benevolent sexism instilled in them. The easiest way to explain that is, if a teacher is telling people you don't hit girls, that's not acceptable. That's benevolent sexism. The right response is you don't hit anyone. Hitting is wrong. But if it very often becomes the case, and this is not just kindergarten levels, there was a story just a couple days ago of a female high school kid punching a male high school kid. The male punches her back once and gets expelled, and the female doesn't. Which is certainly a hot topic and controversial. So yeah, comic books and action things in general, since they're so heavily around the violence and the action, that you inevitably will have kids reenacting it, and you might have more controversy around that general concept if we actually did have 50% like female superheroes to male superheroes, and you very rarely see a male superhero actively going into a massive fight with a female villain or female hero, or vice versa. They usually in the fight very quickly in like one blow, or in one like more thought out maneuver, where like Batman's kind of a great example of that. Batman punches people non-stop, particularly in video games, but very rarely punches a female. Mantis, another weird character I don't recognize. I still feel like the DC weird characters are better than the Marvel weird characters.
Basically, I said something. The dandelions told the tulips. The tulips took it the wrong way, and now there's an army of aggressive flora terrorizing the place. I'd ask you to help me subdue them, but, well, I'm psychic, so I already know you will.
It'd be funny if she said something.
As the saying goes, shall we give this bush a trim?
Okay. So we just need to find some plants and beat up some plants. Which that's different.
Time to weed out the bad seeds. That's better. I do much prefer a garden that isn't trying to kill me. But enough about that. As an empath, I can see that you're eager for me to stop talking and give you a reward for helping me.
That's funny. These episodes are getting fairly long and fairly grindy, but that's what it's going to take to get to 100%, and we are making good progress.
do on this farm. Except all those cool puzzles and stuff, I mean. Boy, was I excited when Mama
Is
said
this
we were gonna come
Butterball?
stay on Hawkeye's farm. Shoot, didn't half get old quick. Hawkeye had even been around to answer all the questions I had. Oh, but hey, there is another way I could get my superhero fix. You reckon you could get me in one of those Hulk selfies I've been seeing online? Oh, but we gotta get my cat Sam in it too. Come on, help me find him.
Okay, so we're gonna do another Hulk selfie, which I guess.
Some places to sleep on a farm. Maybe in that barn? There he is. All right, Sam. Hold still. Hey, Sam, where you going?
So the cat's running away.
Around all day? I mean, I could. I don't ever get tired. It's sort of my thing. Cats like high places, right? Maybe Sam's up a tree somewhere.
Alright, we need Loki for this part. We need our ice beam. Okay, so that makes an ice beam. And then we have to break, I guess, over here to make another ice beam. Am I hitting it? There we go. Right, so we freeze the chimney. Let's see. We need a character that can actually fly. Yeah, that definitely is Hawkeye in the form of Kate Bishop. That definitely is one of the reasons why I like LEGO games, is that even though it is still a lot of cartoon violence, it is better, in my opinion. It's not trying to it's not trying to center all of its gameplay mechanics around just beating up people, where something like Batman Arkham Asylum, for instance, did heavily focus on a beat 'em up mechanic when it wasn't doing its stealth mechanics and its Metroidvania collectible mechanics. Well, either I somehow exited out of the quest, or the cat somehow ran away. Like that, the only tree I see that I could even break would be this one.
Easy now, Sam. Quick, Hulk, take the photo.
Okay. Apparently he was in the tree behind me.
Awesome.
I didn't even see him, and the radar didn't push it. No idea who Butterball is. Alright, so for this area, we've got everything, so we never have to do Barton's Farm. And it seems like this is a good indicator of what a world looks like when everything is said and done. There are fights you can still do, there are races you can still do, and in this case there aren't going to be any incidental crimes, but you'll be able to do everything else. Let's see. Want to bring in a vehicle. And I may have to run around and activate all these vehicle paths, but I doubt it. If I did, it would be for some achievement. And they don't show you the item being built, even though they make the sound like it's being built. Probably because they didn't want to bother to animate it. Which, yeah, once again, that makes it feel like the game is not as finished as it should be. I can't help but feel like they thought they were going to be able to make a sequel and then go back and remaster it and fill in all the mistakes later. Like hitting, there's a decent amount of stuff you can run over. Lego wheels are just textures. I kind of would have liked to see them have some depth to their treads at this point. Well, I think I jumped that. So you have a gun, so you could also run around and shoot some things. I think that's pretty much all there is to it. So yeah, 2 little ramp. And then we'll take this and go to space. And next recording, we will need to focus on doing classic Black Panther, and we'll first and foremost do some more of Manhattan. Like, Manhattan still has a decent amount of collectibles that need to be done, and it is still the by far biggest area. So yeah, we can drop down this way and decide we'll head towards the lower leftmost section.
Criminal activity taking place at 12 o'clock. As in the direction, not the time. I mean, it's happening at the moment, but okay, and now you've changed direction.
Yep. So we'll generally try to get things collected in this general area and then go that general area and see if we can create a dividing line right between this point, and so everything over there will, well, honestly, actually it would be way smarter to go and create a dividing line right here, because the only thing we have as far as a gold brick is this way. So we should start there and work our way in a counter circle motion and spend another good 20 minutes. At some point it would be helpful to buy the mini kit detector, but we can put that off for a fairly long amount of time. We are at 51.4% in total, and we're past 2 billion studs. We have 101 of 196 characters unlocked. We have 36 of 150 minikits unlocked without even really trying. We have almost 150 of 250 gold bricks unlocked, which means we are probably closer than you would think, because a lot of those gold bricks come from the free play levels too. We have 13 out of 15 true Avengers, which we'll get that easily, and there's one more red brick to get. There's still a decent amount of Stanleys and Perils, but then if you think about the fact that there's one in every single level, or at least one in every single level that's not a DLC level, then we know there are 15 more to collect, which means at that point there's only, I would say 14 Stanley's in Peril in open world sections, if my math is right. So yeah, we've got less to do than it seems, but more to do than I would particularly like. I haven't burned out on this, but I definitely am being reminded that I shouldn't just play another LEGO game right after this. I need a good 6 months to a year in between every single LEGO game to recharge my batteries, as far as just how much grinding and how much repetition there is. And there is a particularly bad scenario here where I would buy LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2, and then that would be potentially the third game in which we ran around Manhattan collecting collectibles. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.